All right, guys, we're back again. Dynamic Man Podcast, episode 29. And we are talking today about Erika, Kirk, and Manosphere Dogma. So, as usual, before we begin, if you guys are here, leave a comment in the chat. If you guys are watching, leave a comment in the chat. I'd love to see you guys on here. This is actually going to be a bigger see what we can really tackle in here. There's a lot of things to tackle in these next 40 minutes. But if you guys are here, leave a comment in the chat. It's great to see you here. Today's topic, what's up, Train Companion? Love that. I love that, Avi. I love that, Avi. We're going to be taking this in a little bit of a different direction. I'm going to be going some places I haven't really gone before with a lot of my content, but I feel like a lot of it's appropriate with the Charlie Kirk stuff. I feel like he's kind of opened a portal, so to speak, into a lot of people talking about this, but me in particular. So everybody in the Manosphere is obsessed with desire. That is really the central unifying issue of all Manosphere content. Obviously, it gets more sophisticated. Okay, like I've talked for a long time about the difference between desire and comfort and how they are both the two different sides of attraction and how they're both equally important, depending on your objectives, of course. But if you want a healthy relationship, they're both equally important. But there's a lot of people in the red pill don't even care about comfort. Like it's not even a variable that really enters into their mind, except as something to be dismissive about. You're just a beta if you provide comfort. It's all about desire. It's all about being alpha desire, right? And so from like the Manosphere perspective, if you want to get a girl to be obsessed with you, if you want to have great sex, if you want, everything revolves around desire. How do you desire max, essentially? And I don't want to like be dismissive of it because obviously it's important. Like if you like the most intense lust you're going to get from a woman is definitely going to become when her desire is super, super high, right? So desire matters. Women who have really high desire will chase after a guy in spite of a lot of other bad behavior. Now, you won't have maybe a very healthy relationship or a healthy dynamic, but the desire is powerful. And, if you try to lead with comfort, most of the time, overwhelmingly, I don't want to say most of the time, overwhelmingly, you are going to fail, especially today, right? Okay. So why don't I just focus on desire all the time? Well, because I think that desire is very transient. And this is one of the things that, a lot of guys in the red pill circles, they have, I think, a very, hungry men only think about food, right? Like on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The little pyramid, most of the Manosphere guys are stuck at the very bottom. They're at the very bottom of consciousness. And it's, you give me sex, you give me sex, gimme. How do I get it? How do I get it? How do I get sex? Give me sex. Like it's just like it can be a little bit animalistic. And I'm not even saying that in like it's just, there's not a lot of value added. They're not really looking about how to add more value. They're looking about what do I have to do to get sex? Fair enough, if that's your objective. But the point is, because they're so obsessed with desire, because they're so obsessed with getting sex from women, they tend to neglect the whole spectrum of other inputs and motivations that women have, including things that actually provide deeper intensity. It's also a matter that because they focus on women who are also like the kind of women that they focus on trying to get sex from, or the kind of women who they end up getting sex from, are women who also have more of a material focus for the most part. Sometimes those women are just in that phase of life, but a lot of times it's just the women themselves. It's their orientation in life. So what am I getting at here? What I'm getting at is that they don't really, and they haven't. This is one of the reasons I've had issues with the red pill for a while, is that they have a very base level understanding. And sometimes it's good to focus on the fundamentals because you can't make things too complicated. If you make things too complicated, you lose the fundamentals. The fundamentals are fundamentals for a reason. But there's a lot about male and female interactions that they either consider unimportant when they are very important, and they don't really understand, and they don't have really like a map to explain it. And one of these things is devotion. Okay, I understand why they don't really talk about devotion very much, because there's a couple of reasons for it. The first reason is because they probably have never seen it. You don't see a lot of devotion from women these days. The collapse of social structures and masculine and feminine energy is getting all jumbled up. As we talked about on episode 28, we talked about the heroic man. Well, for a woman to be devoted to a man requires some degree of heroism from him. And I don't mean it like in this extreme sense necessarily, but he has to be like her hero. So when we talked about a hero, what is a hero? A hero is a man who lives for something bigger than himself. So I want you guys to understand this with the dynamics between men and women. It's very important. Women, when they are at their animalistic side, are just fuck machines. So that's just like the truth. That's all they are. They are holes to fuck when they're just primal, and they're looking for the guys who have the best specimen, and they're opportunistic. And that is how you see stupid women, because low IQ correlates to acting more like an animal. That's how you see them behave. It's also how you see teenagers, and to a lesser extent, young adults behave as well, because their brains aren't fully developed. They're immature. So they act more like animals, right? Lord of the Flies took place among middle school kids. So it's like the second your hormones come in, but your brain isn't there, you are the closest thing to an animal that you'll ever be. All right. So women, when they're in this primal state, they really don't, that's all that they serve. But if you're talking from a spiritual capacity, it's different. So in the same way that a man, primally speaking, is just going to have lots of power and violence and dominance, and being able to, he's out muscled the other men, and the women go after him for that reason, whatever. There's a different, there's this sort of, there's a different kind of leadership. There's a different kind of authority that a man can have. A man can have a spiritual authority if he has dedicated himself to something bigger than himself. You can say dedicate himself to God, but I don't want it to be too confusing, because I think it's kind of a semantic argument. If you know your purpose and you dedicate yourself fully to it, and it serves the world, then you are dedicating yourself to God. But some people may misconstrue that as thinking that if you say dedicated to God, that means you have to be seriously just like only thinking through like God's servant. I think that, by the way, that attitude can apply to any vocation. But the point is, I want this to be understood. If you are talking about spiritual leadership, a man sometimes does not even really have himself physically put together, although obviously you want the full package as a man. But spiritual leadership as a man means completely dedicating yourself to something that is above you. Okay. So what is that iteration for a woman? The iteration for a woman is like a priestess or a muse or a shield maiden, right? These are all like kind of sub archetypes of the woman who is in this very, very supporting role of her man. It has to do with her full, complete belief and support and submission to his mission, to serve him, because he is serving God. He's serving this bigger thing. Okay? The only women who are capable of doing this sort of stuff are women who have a spiritual development themselves. So if you are an animal woman, the peak thing that a man can get out of a woman who is in her animal state is her desire. But when a woman is more spiritual in nature, desire is not as compelling an emotion for her. And I think this is one of the issues that the red pill guys have fallen into, and why sometimes you see some talking past each other in different corners of the internet. Because there are a lot of women, and I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be some like coat machine. I'm really not trying to be some like coat machine here. But there are a lot of religious women on Twitter. There's a lot of religious women on Twitter who are stuck up and are in denial, and they're prudes, and they don't fuck their husbands, or they do it in a very dull, duty-bound way, and I'll blow my brains out having to deal with these women. But there are women, religious women, who really just think, and it, I really mean this, they really think that Manosphere commentators are pathetic. They really think that most of the guys in this corner of the internet are truly embarrassing individuals who are stuck in a perpetual state of adolescence and who really do not understand the depths of a woman. There are women who see that. They really do see it. And it's like a level of consciousness thing, because there are these guys and they have this world and they think this is how it is because they live in this little shithole gutter lifestyle where they're constantly trying to fuck girls. And so they're going to places where there are girls who are, they're on dating apps. Like a lot of these girls are there to fuck, right? So they're dealing with the games and the power struggles that occur in that level of consciousness in that world. And they don't understand that there's a lot of women who really have like, they find the entire thing just to be like, you know, as silly as some high school drama. But these guys are talking about it like it's the world, like it's everything, like it's every layer. It's not. And if you are dealing with a woman who is truly spiritual, I don't mean somebody who even just, and I guess what I'll just say here as a qualifier is that sometimes a woman will talk like she's spiritual, but she's really, not integrated at all. She's not a grounded individual. She's not really connected with God. She's not really looking to serve. She's just, an emotional mess, and she conflates some of these things together. Those women are, they'll call you their soulmate. They'll meet you and they'll be like, we're soulmates. And then they'll have all this sex with you. And then they'll be like, I can't be with you. All sorts of drama, stupid stuff. Really spiritual women, though, more grounded spiritual women, are not going to be drawn to men based on this desire stuff. Doesn't mean that they don't feel desire. Doesn't mean they don't feel attraction or a draw. But they are drawn to something else in a man. Okay? They are drawn to something else in a man. And they will not be with a man who doesn't have that something else. That something else is this surrender, dedication to a higher purpose. Because those women, they want to devote themselves to a man. That is what they are looking to do. They want a man to care for them, but they are looking for a man who they can devote themselves to. And the only men that they feel like they can devote themselves to are men that really truly have a purpose, and that purpose consumes them. It's not their will to some extent. They are in the flow of the divine, and they are being guided that way. And the woman wants to be the conduit to that. She wants to be the facilitator. She wants to help that man to fulfill, because this is esoteric, but I'm going to say it. Deep within every woman, because women are feminine, deep within every woman is, I believe, the voice of the divine. That doesn't mean that women are supposed to be the ones who, women are not the ones who manifest the divine on earth. That's man. But women are possessed by this. They're possessed by these energies in a certain sense. And so they can feel it in men. And they can feel it in men who don't have it, right? I think a lot of women would want to go to this route. They want that kind of relationship, but they're not developed enough. They have a lot of their own issues, right? Charlie Kirk was one of these men. Okay? Decently handsome guy, obviously tall. That's a benefit, right? Charismatic. I'm not saying he wasn't an attractive person. And by the way, it's not that Erika wasn't attractive either. She's Miss Arizona. We'll talk a little bit about their story in a second. But the point here is that Erika, Charlie saw something in Erika that she could help him get someplace. She could help facilitate his mission, right? He saw in her a partner for his spiritual purpose. That's why he chose her. He had plenty of options with women if he wanted to. In his position, he could have slept with tons and tons of women. And by the way, these little conservative events, you better believe that there's lots of degenerate shit that goes on. You never heard any of that coming from Charlie. Charlie was one of those 20% of people, influencers, who actually go to those conferences and isn't a fucking degenerate scumbag. Charlie was pure mission. If the things that he created by the age of 31, I mean, this is a whole other topic of conversation, right? But it's incredible how often we lose the people like that who just burn so bright, so young. He accomplished more in 14 years of service than most people accomplish in a lifetime, 2 lifetimes. Absolutely incredible person. And he saw that Erika would be able to be with him on that purpose. And she was devoted to him. And you can see it now in depth. She is devoted to his mission. People are showing this stuff, right? Saint Olga of Kiev, her husband's murder into a mission that crushed the pagan darkness. Yeah, there's a similar look here. There's this sort of intensity, right? She is not gonna be given up. She's not gonna be giving up his mission. She's gonna carry his mission onward because she is completely devoted to him. She's devoted to him. I hear this like alpha widow stuff. I gotta tell you guys, alpha widow stuff, the alpha widow concept drives me crazy because it's so obviously true that women get alpha widowed, and yet the Manosphere has no idea what actually makes women alpha widowed. That's what's so crazy. I mean, you hear these stories like, yeah, she like got alpha widowed by this guy that she banged, you know, back in college or whatever, or like she was out one night and she fucked this guy, she got alpha widowed by him. Like what? What? That's not what alpha widows a girl. The only things that alpha widow a girl is you have to penetrate her bigger than any other guy did. So that means you only have 2 vectors to do that, right? It's got to be sex. You got to like literally penetrate her better. So you got to be the best sex she's ever had. Or you have to penetrate her soul. You have to penetrate her heart. You have to touch her so deeply that no other man can get there. That's what alpha widowing is. It means that you have hit the threshold in one of those two directions, okay? They don't like, to them, it's like like a good experience as an alpha widowing. It is not. Has nothing to do with it. A lot of those situations, a lot of those flings are mostly meaningless to women, and they're mostly distractions, and they're only of relative importance because a lot of these Manosphere guys are fucking boring as bricks, and they have no spirit in them whatsoever. That, of course, a woman got bored of them and went to somebody else or went with an ex because she would probably fucking hated being around him because there's nothing to him. Okay. So those are your two vectors, right? Obviously, it's great to do both, right? Obviously, it's great to do both. But sex maybe hits the desire side of things. But the devotion comes only when a woman not only feels completely loved and seen by a man, but that she feels like through him, she can fulfill her divine purpose as a woman. So you have this material level thing here, like a woman wants, the best specimen guy. She wants to have the kids of the alpha. Okay. Makes sense, biologically speaking. But it's a whole different tier of stuff when you're talking about this man has this energy inside of him. It's not just like about material resources, because that doesn't really inspire women. It really doesn't. Women might, historically have done it, but I think a lot of this stuff gets mixed up in like the correlation, because a lot of men, obviously, who have big impact and gain material success, have this energy in them because they're on a purpose. They're making money, but a lot of them are on this purpose, right? They have a purpose to their life. They have some mission that they're trying to accomplish. Women want to be part of it. They want to serve them with this. Now, of course, the guy sometimes neglects the woman, and that creates its own kind of comfort problem, because this is the thing. Women want to be taken on the journey with a man. All right. So like, this is a whole nother layer to it when we get into the ambition conversation. Women like ambitious men, but they often stop being with ambitious men. Well, why is that? It's because women want to be a part of the man's mission. That's what makes them dedicated to the man, that they're part of the man's mission. Women don't really like to just simply be, I'm going to cook and clean in the background and have your babies. They might accept that because better to be close to the light than not. And if you really make her feel important with it, she might be more satisfied with it. But a lot of women, they really want to feel like their contribution, that whatever the man's mission is, the woman is pulled along with it. They're on the same thing together. Look at this right here. Okay, this is back in May. 4 years of being married to Erika Kirk. Second to following Jesus, it's the best decision I ever made. She's bold, smart, loyal, and beautiful. Happy anniversary, Erika. I love you. Pulling her on stage like this. Some women prefer more of an behind the scenes role. Some prefer a little bit more of a forward facing role. But the point is that what Charlie understood is that when he brings a woman into his life, when he brought Erika into his life, he brought her into his mission. That's what women want to be a part of. He says, this is what we were doing. This is where we're going. Come with me. People talk about this in Manosphere, like a lot of like attraction people might talk about this, like you have to offer her a sense of adventure. You have to offer her some kind of, like something that's more than her day-to-day boring life. And you can seduce a girl doing that. But you don't get a woman devoted to you unless it's something higher, unless it's something bigger. And devotion is so much more powerful than desire, Because you can have desire and devotion, but you can't have devotion without desire. You can't have devotion without desire. It's a deeper kind of desire. It may not be like the super, super flashy kind of desire, like the super short term, intense spike, but it is a deep, all consuming surrender that woman gives you. And a lot of these Manosphere red pill guys, no idea what that's about. That's why they think anything happens to you, woman's going to leave, because they're viewing this stuff in terms of transient emotions and game playing. They don't understand this spiritual component. Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to tell you guys this, okay? I know not everybody here's a Christian. I don't really care, okay? I'm a Christian. I don't talk about this stuff a lot. But I will tell you this, that the men who have really, really and truly given themselves over to Christ, to the Holy Spirit, have absolutely dedicated wives to them. Absolutely, because they're fearless. When you are literally living by the Holy Spirit, you are completely fearless. And so their women, their wives, they're also in the same place. They completely surrender to them. Because if you're looking for what does a woman want to surrender to? What a woman wants is to surrender to God. So man is supposed to be the representative of God on earth. So if a man is very powerful in the material sense, he can kind of create things like a god. He can manifest things like a god, can make things happen. And that can create a lot of desire and spikes, etc. Right? But when a man is literally following the will of God, maybe in the way of Charlie, who's a saint, and who was actually out there proselytizing and putting himself out there among demons, or maybe it's someone like Steve Irwin, who understood that he had this vocation to save habitats and save all these animals, and brought God to that experience. He brought people and nature together. Like God was working through Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin was another one of these people, and Steve Irwin's wife is completely devoted to him. Alpha widowed for life, just like Erika Kirk will be. Doubt she will remarry. If she does, it'll be a long time from now. Because they are devoted to the legacy, because they were brought in on the journey. But when their men were alive, their men were in some sense radiating the energy of God, right? They were not doing things for themselves. They were doing things because they were servants to something bigger than themselves. And that is, on a deep level, what every woman wants. And I don't really give a fuck what any red pill manosphere guy has to say about this. Just because you haven't seen it, just because you've seen the lower resolution of female nature, don't think that doesn't mean that it's the only part of it. Because there's the darker part and there's the lighter part. And the men who have that light in them, they may deal with women who are parasitic, who are trying to take that light from them. But there are women who, when they see the main issue that they have with their man in a relationship, is that the man is not embodying, he's got too much of his own ego involved. He's not dedicating things to a higher purpose, higher cause. A lot of the marriages that I fix, okay, some of it has to do with early deterrence, right? Woman's got bad behavior, etc. She's not behaving like a wife, so he has to create some deterrence, right? Pull back, threaten maybe to destroy the marriage, so that she understands that she can't treat him poorly. Okay, that's a little bit red pill stuff, a little bit of, sometimes there's a dread component to it. But the next step, no one ever talks about. The next step is that you actually have to embody more of a leader, because invariably rather, whenever a relationship's gone off the rails, it's because the man has not been leading for the benefit of the relationship. Now, maybe he's been a nice guy. And he's been, a bitch, and he's been trying to emotionally caretake and giving all this stuff to her, but he's been giving it to her to get something. It's all egotistical at the end of the day, and she's disgusted by it. Or maybe he flips to more of a red pill mindset and he's trying to now use his leverage to make her do things. Like I said, some deterrence to do that is important to reset things, right? But you do that too long, you end up just having another power imbalance, and she's going to get burned out. And it's just more, the shoe's on the other foot a little bit, but you're not fixing the relationship. What fixes the relationship is when you start to think to yourself, I am going to lead this family someplace. That's the first lower step of it, right? But you're going to lead. So you start to lead with her in mind. You're thinking about her and what she needs. Now you have a woman who's starting to surrender more to you because she can trust you. This stuff goes to a whole nother level when you are, when you have this vision, we are going to this place and you're coming with me, you're part of it. And we're doing this together. Not every woman is going to be called to your mission. That's why it's really important to choose correctly. There were many women who wanted Erika, no doubt. Sorry, there are many women who wanted Charlie, no doubt. But would every single one of those women, would most of those women have supported his mission and what he was trying to do? Or would they have just seen the light that he was giving off and wanted to be a part of it? The trap in the discernment is picking a woman who is going to help serve that light that you are building, that she's going to be a partner in it. And Erika was that partner. So devotion, very, very powerful. Most men don't earn it because most men do not live for anything but themselves. And that applies very much to most of these red pill guys. They may get desire from women, but they mostly get contempt from women. And they can get both at the same time. But you are missing out on a whole different world that only happens when your intent is to give good to the world. That's when you get good women around you. Big surprise! There's no good women out there. Well, what the fuck do you do for the world? Do you do a single fucking thing to help this world? You think a good woman just wants to do things for you? A lot of guys are really, really narcissistic, just like a lot of women are today. There's a lot of narcissism floating around our society. Good women do not give a shit about you. They give a shit about the man who is doing good things for the world. The man who lives for more than himself. That's what they care about. Those are the men that they surrender to. So if you are either self-absorbed in chasing your own gratification, they're not going to be interested in you. Or if you're too afraid to do dick in this world, they're also not going to be interested in you. So you're unwilling to take risks. If you're unwilling to step out there into the unknown, you're going to get dull, boring women. I tweeted this out the other day. I'm going to see if I can get this. I got it right here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to put this up. I'm going to put this one up. I have a few tweets to share with you. So, it's coming right now. So yeah, I put this out the other day. If you're too afraid to take risks in your personal life, quit that job, learn that skill, take up that cause. Don't expect to meet a woman whose beauty and aura inspires you. You're playing life dull and safe. The universe will reward you with similarly bland friends and lovers. And by the way, this is obviously directed towards men. I say meet a woman. It's the same thing. It's the same thing for women too, in their own way. Women need to understand that they don't need to impress men in the same way. But I'll tell you this. Erika was a very wealthy. She was a wealthy woman herself, established woman herself. And there's no question that Charlie was drawn to her strength and her independent spirit because he knew he was doing hard work. And the last thing that he could afford to have is a woman who was emotionally dependent, emotionally needy. Okay. He needed somebody who had her own base to stand on that he could depend on because he was doing risky stuff that was very time and energy consuming. So we needed a woman who had the spiritual base to be like, what you're doing is so important. If I can't have you as much as I want, I'm okay with that because you are doing God's work on earth. And I will stand in my own corner and help support that. It's the first thing. Now, some more things here I want to share. This is what I said. This is why Erika Kirk is the best example you'll ever get why ambitious men cannot afford to marry weak-willed women. Charlie chose well. He did choose well because she is able to carry on his legacy. And if she was a weak woman, she would not be able to do that. A lot of guys are addicted to the validation of a weak woman. And they don't understand that that comes with a lot of trade-offs, which is that they're going to take your energy rather than help build it. So I already talked about a lot of this stuff. Yeah, I already talked about that. I don't have to share this. This is just talking about the desire devotion stuff. I forgot to put that slide up earlier. There's one last thing I want to talk about here before we sign off. One of the things that Manosphere guys immediately like coped out about. I saw it. I saw the tags for the Rational Male when I said that Charlie Kirk chose Erika well because Erika's 5 years older than Charlie. Now look, that's like a big no in the Manosphere. Can't date a woman who's older than you. Certainly not that much older than you. That must mean you're a cuck, right? Yeah, Charlie was definitely a beta. Charlie was a beta. I'm a certified red pill guy. Charlie was a beta. His girlfriend was 5 years older, so I guess he's just a beta male. When you see a situation like that, I want like side comment here. You look at how impressive he was, all he was able to accomplish, and you look at all these fucking platitudes, these like ironclad rules of a bunch of online dorks. And you think to yourself, like, these guys really, like these guys, do they really think that they're correct? If there's ever a time when you have to understand that there's an exceptions to rules, and that when you actually have discernment and development that you can make that it's okay to make exceptions to rules, right? There you have some guidelines, but there's always exceptions to it. Because Charlie obviously was not anything remotely close to a beta. He was as, much of a leader as any man can really be. I mean, this is literally what people say. I mean, it wasn't as prolific because he had been killed, but I bet you anything, if these guys knew about it beforehand, before he was dead, they would have been talking about it all the time. They've been like, "Oh, Charlie, look at what Charlie's doing. Well, he's a cuck. His wife's 5 years older." Blah 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 blah. Don't take this as an endorsement of this as a strategy. I'm not saying that it makes sense to do that for your average guy or that anybody should plan to do it. Okay? But just speaking practically here, the younger you are, the more the more leeway you have with that if you want to have a family. If you are a 40-year-old guy and you want to have a family, marrying a 45-year-old woman is probably a dumb idea. It's not going to work. But if you're a 25-year-old guy or 26-year-old guy like Charlie was when he married Erika, who was 30, right, 31 at the time, then it's a little bit different, right? She's still got fertile years ahead of her, and there's more leeway with these things. Again, are we going to say it's objectively best practices? No, but you weigh people in a holistic manner. You assess them holistically on every single category, and age is not some ironclad thing. I can't tell you, sometimes I have guys like, well, I met a great girl. She's like, it's amazing. Everything, we're clicking perfectly, blah, 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 blah. But I don't know, man, if I can be with her. What do you mean? Why not? Oh, she's 2 years older than me. There's a guy who's like, 29. Like, some of this, it's just neurotic nonsense. It's neurotic nonsense. So it's just a little side point here. Yes, Charlie chose well, even though she was 5 years older than him. He did. He chose well. Okay. And he chose well because he's not some neurotic person on the internet who doesn't know how to assess women independently of a bunch of, data fact points, which you actually have to learn how to do if you ever want to be successful with women on a deep level. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on opportunities. You're just going to live in a little fear cage and, good luck. Anyway, I hope this was informative for you guys, but as Jing says in the comments here, power is the biggest aphrodisiac, but the real power that even transcends material power, is spiritual power. And Charlie's real gift, and I think I'm going to close with this. I was trying to understand why so many of us who never really cared about Charlie Kirk, didn't know a lot about him, just kind of knew him as just some, like, maybe just mainstream gotcha guy on college campuses, right? Why his death was so impactful. And the reason his death was so impactful was actually because he was a better person than all of us. And we understood it. We understood that really, like, Charlie was a tour de force in politics, but his real impact, I think we are starting to understand where his real authority came from, was that he was like a spiritual, he was a saint. In a different time period, he would be considered a saint, and he was martyred. And what we are feeling is the energy that his martyrdom gave off, because we've all kind of realized that this was truly somebody who was ordained by God. And the purity of his soul and the loss of it, I think, has made everybody who does have a soul and who wants to be a better person, it's kind of shamed us all to some extent. We didn't see that what he was doing was really so much more than the politics. The politics were really the least of it. He was an evangelist, and the Holy Spirit was living off of him, or it was emanating from him, rather. And so he was this humble servant, but he had God through him, and that was power unto itself. And we feel the power in his death. We feel the impact. And it's that power that makes Erika dedicated and devoted to him. So we should all strive to be like Charlie, not only because that's how you really make the world a better place, but that is how you really achieve. If you want to have a woman, if you want to alpha widow a woman, give yourself wholly to something, fully and completely to something bigger than yourself, and have that woman be part of it. And if she's a woman who doesn't want to be a part of anything good, and she's self-serving, then get rid of her, because she's just there to hold you back. She's not there to build with you, to build the kingdom here. All right, guys, I love you all, and I will see you tomorrow on COVID Cabals. We're going to be an hour earlier tomorrow, starting at 4:15, because I got to be someplace after 5. So we'll see you tomorrow.